Hi all. I spoke to a lot of you today and I promised you that I'm going to put up a video on ratio practice. So here it is. Um, Obviously I put up the first four videos going over the non-calculated mark ratio. Fractions, decimals and percentages are huge on paper one, and that's obviously our first paper. So before we start, these are questions getting increasingly difficult, but the main skill that you're going to need is sharing in a ratio. So please, can you just check that you are ready to work? You've got a pen and paper, and just pause the video and try this question. So now that you've had a chance to try that, hopefully it wasn't too challenging. That was just a little teaser to get you started. It says share 10 in the ratio 2 to 3. So what you should have been doing is thinking about it like this: 2 parts and 3 parts. We're sharing 10 amongst all of those. So obviously that's going to be 2 each. And in the green section we've got 4. And in the red section we've got 6, so we've shared 10 in the ratio 2 to 3. Okay, so let's move on to something a little bit more challenging. We're going to try this next question. So here we go. Pause the video and have a go at this. Right, okay, so let's have a look at this. Jacob has 20 pens. 12 of them are black, the rest are green. Write down the ratio of black pens to green pens that Jacob has. Now clearly if he has 20 pens in total, if he has 20 pens in total and 12 of them are black, the rest are green, we need to subtract the 12 black ones and that will leave us with 8, which tells us the number of green pens. So if he has 8 green pens and 12 black pens, the ratio of black pens to green pens is going to be 12 to 8. We're not asked to simplify, so I'm not going to go further with that. B, write down what fraction of Jacob's pens are green. Simplify your answer. So we're asked explicitly to simplify here, so we're going to do that. So it's 8 pens that he has, 8 green pens out of the total number of pens that he has, 8 out of 20 pens in total, which can simplify. Both of these can be divided by 4. Both of these have 4 as a factor. So if I divide the top by 4, I get 2. And if I divide the bottom by 4, I get 5, 2/5. Okay. You might have simplified by halving. That would have given you 4/10, but you needed to go further to make sure that you got to your fully simplified fraction. Okay, Jacob gets 5 more green pens. Write down the ratio of black pens to green pens that Jacob has. So he had 8 green pens, he gets 5 more. So we're going to add those together. That gives us 13. And the ratio of black pens to green pens, again, we're putting the black pens first. That's 12 to 13. Okay, and no simplification to be done. Fab, let's move on. Okay, here we go. Okay, so pause the video and try these. I've helpfully left this model up for you, so have a go. Right, now that you've had a chance to try these questions, let's have a look at the solutions. The first one was sharing 24 in the ratio 3 to 5. So this was very much like the starter question that we looked at. Whoops. Let's run out of ink. All right, so 24 pounds shared in a ratio 3 to 5. There's 8 parts in total. So the calculation that we're doing here is 24 divided by 8. How many 8s make 24? Or 8 lots of what make 24? And the answer is 3. That tells us that each of these is worth 3, okay? Parts in a ratio are equal. So these yellow parts, the 3 that Ellie gets are worth 9. So Ellie gets 9. And Anay gets 15. Okay, so let's move on. So Morgan and Luke share some money in the ratio 3 to 5. Morgan gets £24. How much money did they start with? Okay, so a slightly different type of a question here. Saying Morgan and Luke share some money, Morgan gets £24. So this 3 is corresponds to Morgan's part, and we're being told that what she gets is worth £24. So we know that this part is worth £24. 24 divided by 3 gives us 8. That tells us each part of this ratio is worth 8. So we go ahead and fill that in. We can easily work out what the amount of money was that they had to start with. 8 times 8 would give you 64, or you could do, well, I know that that bit is 40, the blue bit is 40, that's 5 times 8 plus 24 also gives you £64. So that was okay. This one says Laura and Tasmin share some money in the ratio 3 to 5. Tasmin gets £24. How much did Laura get? Okay, so a very similar question to the last one, but a little bit more difficult with the calculations. So this was £24. 24 divided by 5. 24 divided by 5. I would do this as doubling the top and doubling the bottom. Gives us 48 divided by 10. And that's £4.80. So that tells us that each of these is worth £4.80. So Laura gets 3 lots of £4.80, and that's all we need to work out. So I know that, well, I could do it 3 lots of £4 and 3 lots of 80p and add those together. That gives me £12 plus £2.40 leaves me with £14.40, and that's how much Laura would get. Incidentally, I am writing that as 40. That's important in a money amount. I'm not just going to put £14.4. Okay, so let's look at the last bit. I'm just going to get rid of this working to make some room. Jonathan and Michael share some money in the ratio 3 to 5. Michael gets £24 more than Jonathan. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so we know that Jonathan gets the yellow amount and Michael gets the blue amount. So I'm just going to separate those, and I'm going to put them side by side so we can really see how much more Michael is getting. Yeah, how much more Michael is getting is this much more, and that must be worth, it says Michael gets £24 more than Jonathan, so that's worth £24. That tells us that each of these parts is worth £12. So how much money did Jonathan get? Well, if each of these parts is worth 12, then Jonathan must get 12 times 3, which is £36. And that comes from 12 times 3. Where did we get the 12 from? It was 24 shared into those 2 extra boxes. Okay, so let's move on to the last question. Again, I would encourage you to pause the video. Okay, so now that you have had a try at the question, play through the solution and see if you got it right. So first thing to do is to model our ratio. We know that it's going to look something like this: 4 parts blue paint, 3 parts green paint, and 1 part brown. Okay, what's the maximum amount of teal paint that Ben can mix? Well, there's a few ways for us to look at this. I would be thinking, okay, well, I know how much of each of these paints I've got. That's not to say that I'm definitely going to use all of those bits, Obviously that would make a really easy question. I would just add those three amounts together and not worry about the ratio if that was the case. So I'm not going to be doing that. But it is good for me to consider how much blue paint I could afford, let's say. 1.8 litres between 4 parts. The green paint I could put 1,170 mils between 3 parts. And the brown paint, well, that's easy, it's just 400 mils each. So I've already got the amount for 1 part. So this is pretty handy actually. I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so this 400 mils, I could say, alright, so each of the parts is worth 400 mils. Great. So I've got 400 mils in each of these as well. This is where I run into problems. If I've got good mental arithmetic, I'd be thinking, well, 4 times 3 is 12. So 400 times 3 is 1200 or 1200, but I don't have enough. Okay, these 3 add up to 1200. I do not have enough green paint for that. So this 400 per part is not going to work for me. So let's go back and think, well, okay, if that's not going to work, how much green paint do I have? If I share that amount between 3, what would I get? So it's a division by 3. 3's can't go into 1. 3's into 11 go 3 times, remainder 2. 3's into 27 go 9 times, and 3's into 0 go 0 times. Okay, so I can afford to put, in terms of my green paint, I can afford to put 390 ml in each. That's alright, because I've got a little bit extra of brown paint, but I can still put 390 in there. And if I put 390 into all of these, what will happen? Will I have enough blue paint? Let's think about that. Okay, so 390 times 4. 390 times 4. Okay. How does this number, so that tells us how much blue paint we need, 1560. Do we have enough? We've got 1.8 litres. Well, 1 litre is 1000 millilitres. So 1.8 litres is 1800 millilitres, which means that I've got more than enough. I only need 1560. So I've figured out that 390 is the amount that each of my ratio parts is worth. And the total amount would be these 3 amounts added together. So 1560 for the blue paint, 1170 for the green paint, and 390 for the brown paint. I can add those up, or I could multiply 390 by 8, whichever you prefer really. I'm going to go for adding. 6 plus 7 is 13, 22, carry the 2, 7, 8, 11, so 3,120 mils. I'll just show you. So we could also get that same result from 8 parts of 390. So 8 times 390 would also give us that same result, and that is the maximum possible amount of teal paint that Ben can mix. Hopefully that video has been useful for you. If you would like to practice any other ratio questions and you don't know where to go, please email me.